You know, they're selling you all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you will do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there. I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Napier, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy? Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm going to go home tonight. I'm going to drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Yes. What is up, MCR family? It's a little immediate reaction show live after UFC 251. Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. Plus, we had Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway 2. Jose Aldo losing in really devastating and sad fashion against Peter Yan and, you know, changing the guard in terms of MMA and generations. That's sad to get to that. Rose Namajunas picking up a big win in a rematch. A lot to get into on this little quick, immediate reaction show. I'm joined on this late show by two wonderful guests and co-hosts, Mr. Matthew Wells of Slip and Dip Podcast, Mr. Pat OJ of Like MMA and ShareDog.com. I think I missed anything right there. Guys, how are you? Matt, I'll go to you first, man. Did you enjoy the fights?
Of course I enjoyed the fights, man. They pretty much played out exactly as I was expecting them to play out. Every single one of them, with the exception of the Yan and Aldo fight, because that was the only one that I did not know. I couldn't call. That was the only one I couldn't call coming in, right? All the other ones, pretty much exactly what I thought was going to happen. But nevertheless, it was still an entertaining night of fights. So I'm happy with it.
Pat, your thoughts on the fights, man? You enjoyed the fights?
Yeah, no, I love the fights. I thought it was great. I, again, went the way I thought too, but I thought a lot of the matches were way more competitive than I expected them to be. I thought Aldo looked way better than I thought he would. I thought Holloway looked very good. We can get into that in a little bit. Yeah, no, great night of fights. Very not surprised by the decisions and the victories, but am surprised about how competitive it was.
I agree on a lot of that, especially when we get to, I think, how good Holloway looked in terms of his adjustments, how good Aldo still looks, even at 135. We're going to get to all of that. First, let's get to the main event. Kamaru Usman defeating Jorge Masvidal by absolute domination. I mean, other than the few exchanges on the feet where Masvidal did get the advantage of, and predominantly they were in the very beginning of the fight in the first round, first 30 seconds, Usman dominated. He was constantly on top of Masvidal, constantly attached to him in the clinch, constantly landing shots in the clinch. Somewhere like Randy Couture and GSP are just smiling right now because this was like a classic grinding affair. And Usman, again, dominated. There's not a lot to really dissect with this one, I feel like. Pat, your thoughts on the X's and O's here with Kamaru Usman?
Yeah, no, if anything, I thought it was interesting. Both fighters looked real gassed after round one. Kind of expected that with Masvidal coming out of 6 days notice or whatever, but with Usman even looked pretty tired himself after round one, kept grinding, doing that as well. I was surprised he didn't get more takedowns. I'm going to be honest. Masvidal's takedown defense was solid. But, you know, he just kept grinding, chipping away, doing what Usman does. This is how he normally wins fight. Covington versus Usman was a rarity. This is how it normally goes. So not shocked by how it went down. And yeah, that's what he's got to do to keep the belt.
Matt, your thoughts?
I mean, this was the one that I said was going to go exactly like this. I said this on your show, on our previous show that we did. I said the first round would be close. And then contrary to what Usman said at Media Day, where he said he wasn't going to drag it into deep waters, I knew that's exactly what he was going to do because that's what he always does. So, I mean, it played out exactly as I thought, man. And you got to give credit to Masvidal, though, considering the situation. And even though, he couldn't break the grip of Usman for a significant amount of time to cause damage, he did go for it in the last 30 seconds. I mean, with whatever he had left. So, I mean, that just shows you the type of fighter that he is. We all knew that going in, though. But Usman's just too much, man. Short notice. He didn't have Mike Brown in his corner. Just too much to overcome.
Yeah, I feel like Masvidal's lack of preparation was evident. Like, not only from a cardio perspective, but even like his physique. Like, you can tell he was not in prime fighting shape. And on top of, even though he was able to, for long periods of time, able to sort of stop the takedown from Usman, he was never able to really get him off from the clinch. And he was always stuck in that position. So he was never really able to get that distance and start landing his jab, landing his classic boxing combinations. Because whenever he was able to get some distance, he was landing clean on Usman. Like, Usman clearly was not, I think, up to a striking battle with Jorge Masvidal. If they were stuck striking, Masvidal would win that one probably 10 out of 10 times. But he just didn't. This wasn't just a striking affair, and this was an MMA fight. And Kamaru Usman, I mean, dominated the clinch more than anything. It's not like he took him to the ground and dominated there on top or in guard. No, it was on the clinch against the cage. A lot of shots to the body, a lot of obviously foot stomps. I think a lot of people have different views on that and how they appreciate it or not. Guys, any other thoughts on this fight in terms of the main event, X's and O's? No, okay, let's move on. Alexander Volkanovski. I mean, there's not much to discuss. I mean, the Kamaru Usman dominated. And I mean, I will say this. Who do we want for Usman next? Is it Leon Edwards? Is it someone else? Thoughts on the next guy for Usman? Matt, I'll go to you first.
Give me Burns, man. I mean, that was the fight that we were supposed to get initially, although this was the fight that made more sense ranking-wise. So this was the one that we should have gotten. Albeit, for Masvidal, for a guy that's been in the game for so long, you wish he was under ideal circumstances, but sucks for him. It wasn't. It was short notice, all that kind of crap. They had to fly across the world. Everybody knows the story. But give me Burns. Let's see how that plays out. I think it'll be a lot different in the clinch because Burns is really slick with jiu-jitsu. He can do some stuff, man. And Usman is obviously, we know he's the great wrestler that he is, but I think the BJJ of a Gilbert Burns can cause a lot of problems for him. So I'm interested to see how that one plays out.
Pat, your thoughts?
I mean, Burns is the more interesting matchup in my opinion, but at the same time, Leon Edwards is riding an 8-fight win streak. Sounded like they offered him this fight originally before either Masvidal or Burns, and they couldn't get it done because of the travel issues with everything going on with the pandemic. So I like Edwards getting that shot. I feel like he's dominated enough. It's very similar to how Usman got a shot where he had 9 wins and was just crushing and people. And if he eventually got that shot, I feel like it'd be a good rematch since Edwards' last loss was to Usman. But I do like Burns as well. So I'm down with either of those. I'm down with Burns versus Edwards against each other if you want to go that route. Decide who gets Usman's neck. But yeah, either of those guys. I don't know who else you could really put up there.
Yeah, I think I pretty much would be accepting of either matchup. And I think either one is going to happen. There's not a third guy. I don't think like Conor McGregor's going to come in and take a fight with Usman. That's not happening. It's going to be either Gil Burns or Leon Edwards, 2 guys who deserve a title fight, and that's okay. Let's move on to the co-main event. Alexander Volkanovski, I mean, how can we say this? Narrowly won a decision against Max Holloway controversially. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have scorecards for Volkanovski. I know me and Matt have scorecards for Volkanovski. There's like a lot of people that have scorecards for Holloway. I don't know what Pat's scorecard is, but I know there's a lot that do have scorecards for Holloway. This one seems to be one that's going to be a sticking point in terms of the conversation of what was your scorecard? How did you have round 3 scores, stuff like that. Matt, I'll go to you first. Thoughts on this fight and thoughts on the decision?
Yeah, this was one of those fights that I think everybody knew was going to be like the closest fight of the night, right? Considering how their first one went. And it was. Played out very similarly to how I thought it would play out, with both guys having their moments, very close rounds, and it being like a grind, but mostly in the striking department, from beginning to end. I, like you said, scored it for Volkanovski. However, as Bruce Buffer is reading the scores, when he does the long pause after a split decision, I was not going to be mad either way because it was that close of a fight. So for all of the folks out there screaming robbery on my timeline right now or in my mentions, chill the hell out. This was not a robbery. This was a damn close fight. And that's what happens in a split decision. Somebody's going to get their heart broken. That's just what it is in a close fight.
Pat, your thoughts on the decision?
So I'll disagree a little bit with Matt in that I expected Volkanovski to win, but I thought it was going to be an even greater margin, especially if you read Holloway's interviews before this, where he's talking about he wasn't sparring at all. And then the UFC countdown where he watches that fight and he's like, I don't understand how I lost this. And it was like, oh, I expect Volkanovski to just kind of run away with this. I thought Holloway looked phenomenal, especially in the first 2 rounds. I personally had it for Holloway, but I'm with Matt in the sense that it was very close. I could see it go either way. I think round 3 was pretty much the deciding round. I thought Holloway did a little bit more in terms of strikes, and while Volkanovski got some clinch work in there, he didn't really do anything with it. So personally, I had Holloway winning. It's one of those things where this sucks because now that makes Volkanovski 2-0 over Holloway, and I would really love to see a third match between two of them, and I think that's going to be a long road for Max. I don't know where he goes from here, but I thought that was way closer than I expected. I expected Volkanovski to get 49, 46, 50, 45s, especially the way Holloway was talking about this in the lead up to the fight. You don't spar. You see your coaches for the first time a week before your fight, and on all of the interviews, you're saying, I don't understand how I lost. That's not usually what someone says and then goes in there and puts on the performance Holloway did. So hats off to both men. I think they deserve the fight of the night bonus. I don't know if they're going to get it or not, but to me, they definitely did a great job. But yeah, a very close fight. I personally gave Holloway the edge, but I'm not mad about it either way.
I do wonder the validity of those claims by Holloway of I don't know how I lost, and I was only on Zoom practices. I wonder how much he was just pulling our chain, so to speak. I will say this: Holloway's adjustments in terms of not being the one to rush to engage was a massive adjustment because in the first fight he was always, because it's Max Holloway, trying to be the one pressing the action, pressing the pace, and he was setting himself up to be countered quite often. He didn't do that in this fight at all, especially in the first 2 rounds. He laid back, allowed Volkanovski to be the over-aggressor, counter him, and obviously knocked him down in the first 2 rounds respectively. The third round was a classic round from the first fight where it was highly technical, a lot of missing, a lot of inefficient, or I should say inefficient, a lot of inefficient offense, a lot of highly efficient defense from both guys in the third round. So it was a toss-up round. The 4th and 5th round, I thought Volkanovski clearly landed the better and bigger shots, especially down the stretch in both rounds. But again, like Matt said, like you've said, I don't have any issue with really how you score it per se, especially after those first 2 rounds. You could have it 4-1 probably for Max Holloway or 3-2 for Volkanovski, like I did. I had round 3, 4, and 5 for Volkanovski. I think Matt had the same exact scorecard as well. If you think he got robbed, I don't agree with you at all. I think that's, talking to people in the chat and listeners out there, I think that term is being thrown out a lot right now. And overall with these types of fights, this was not a robbery. This was a highly close competitive fight where we should actually have more of a discussion on the 10-9 system, because round 1 and 2, rounds where there's knockdowns, rounds where Holloway kind of dominated, right? Those rounds were scored the same as rounds 3, 4, and 5. And none of those rounds were the same. And that's where I think long-term as a community, we should have a discussion instead of, oh, this fighter was robbed, this fight was a robbery, because that's not going to solve the issue long-term. Guys, any other thoughts on Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway?
Yeah, man. It's interesting. As Pat was saying, the third round was the closest round, and that was the toss-up round for me. That was the toss-up round for, it seemed like, everybody on Twitter. And then you see the official card come out, and all 3 real judges had the third round for Volkanovski. So, and they had the 5th round being the deciding round, which was crazy to me because I thought Volkanovski clearly won the 5th round. So, I mean, I don't know what to do about this, man. And I think part of that reaction, I mean, to your point, Matt, there is something to be said about the 10-point 10-9 system in MMA, right? Agree with that. We've been saying that for years and years. We need to do something different with that for MMA. But I think a lot of this reaction that fans are having to this is because Max is so likable. Everybody wanted to see Max win, you know? So many fans of Max Holloway on the timeline, on the feeds. And I get it, man. I wanted Max to win too. This is one of those fights I didn't want to see either guy lose. You know, both guys are very likable. You know, Max is one of the most well-liked fighters in the history of the sport. So it sucks to see him lose a close fight. And I understand that. I get it. Like I said, if Buffer said, and no, I would have been like, hey, good for Max. Let's go. You know, but that's not where we are. And it's not a robbery. So chill out, people.
And again, like, it's a weird thing where, like, you can have a legit argument of it's 4-1 for Max Holloway or 3-2 for Volkanovski. That wide-ranging spectrum of acceptable scorecards is both an indictment on the scoring system, but also an indicator of how good this fight was and how competitive it was. As, like Pat said, like, he didn't think this was going to be competitive. I didn't think it was going to be as competitive either. I didn't think Holloway was training seriously. I didn't think he was going to make the adjustments. And he largely did. I think Volkanovski fought very well in the championship rounds, but Holloway, I thought, was in vintage form in round 1 and 2. That was some of the best Holloway we've seen in some time, to be honest. What do you guys want next for either guy? Pat?
For me, I mean, again, just touching on what you guys both said, it's hard because, you know, if we were doing you know, the Ryzen or Pride system of judging a fight as a whole, I think Max would have won that fight, right? Because he clicked, he knocked down Volkanovski twice. I think if you look at 25 full minutes, I think Max wins it. But I'm with you guys 100% in terms of the 10-9 system. I think the judging definitely suspect the fact that the 5th round was the toss-up one. That's a whole nother story. Now for him, you know, I think, honestly, what I would love to see Max do is take some time off, bulk up a little bit, and go up to 155. I'd like to see him, you know, he was very competitive in the Poirier fight. As Dana White said and others said, he looked a little smaller in there. He hadn't really put on weight. You look at what Poirier did when he was at 145 to 155, and now he's a monster in that division. I think if Max bulks up, you know, gets that going, I think he can be a real force at 155. And I think it makes more sense rather than him killing himself to cut to 145 when now he's lost twice to the champion. It's going to be, you know, 4 or 5 wins and knock out contenders in order to get that 3rd shot. So for me, I like Holloway going up. For Volkanovski, I don't know who you give him besides Korean Zombie. In my opinion, I think that's the clear choice. You got Zombie and Ortega. They're talking about matching up, but Zombie to me has proven he looks like a new man ever since he's been training with Eric Albana. I think you do Zombie versus Volkanovski. I would really love to see that fight.
Matt, what do you want for both guys next, respectively?
Max has a world of options at his disposal right now. Staying in the division and doing Lord knows what, or just going up to 155, like Pat said, I think would be the better option because the title picture is not in the near future in either division. So I think doing best the best thing for him to do would be whatever is most comfortable for him. So if he doesn't want to cut weight a couple of times, go to 155, you know? Or, I mean, there's no good answer for Holloway right now. For Volkanovski, though, I would say, yeah, I like the Zombie fight. I like that. I mean, you got Zabit out there too. I think Zabit, what is he ranked right now? I think he's ranked like 2nd or 3rd, something like that. So either one of those fights would be good. You know, I think they'll all be competitive. But Volkanovski, man, like I said, you know, coming into this fight, I think he's just in that mindset right now to where he wants to run this division. So no matter who it is, I think he's going to bring his A game like he brought tonight. It's going to be competitive. He's going to be a tough out for anybody. So good luck if you're fighting him.
I probably lean more towards Pat in the idea of like taking a year off, like bulking up to 155 and acclimating yourself size-wise to that weight class because he's such a big 145-pounder. Like, he towers over Volkanovski. He can still be a pretty big guy at 155, in my opinion, relatively speaking. if he just bulks up naturally. I don't think he bulked up for Poirier at all. I think he just jumped up and just didn't cut weight, to be honest. But I will say this, because he's so well liked by both the fandom and the company, I would say, he's only probably, 2 fights away from getting another title fight, even if it's Volkanovski still. Like, he could be in that Holly Holm, Uriah Faber situation where he can just get title fights rather easy because he's so well liked. And he is relatively the biggest star in this division right now. Like, I would say, without Aldo here, he is the main draw at 145. So he can easily get a title fight in the next 2 or 3 fights if he gets easy wins at 145. I will add also another name to the mention, Yair Rodriguez for Volkanovski. That'd be another name I would like to see.
That's a good one too.
Yeah, a guy that beat Korean Zombie, just point that out as well. Knocked him out in devastating fashion. Sorry, Pat.
Last second, by the way. Yeah, he did.
After getting dominated that whole fight,
yeah,
landing the home run shot.
Hey,
the Hail Mary at the buzzer.
Kobe. That's all he needed right there, man. That was one of the greatest knockouts of all time, too. That was amazing.
It was.
Live, I had no idea what happened. I thought he just fell down. I was so confused. Moving on, though, Peter Yan defeating Jose Aldo in just depressing fashion. Let's be honest. TKO in the 5th round. First off, the stoppage was awful. They could have stopped this the second he got knocked down that 5th round. Like, it was apparent Aldo was out. Like, he, not in terms of like him being unconscious, but like he was done with the fight. He wanted out. He wasn't going to tap, but he was mentally checked out. But honestly, like, Aldo looked good. Aldo looked good in the first 2 rounds. He was throwing leg kicks, and then starting a little tired. Peter Yan started, I think, accumulating more damage and volume and sort of taking Aldo out of his game plan and eventually just beat him up. It did seem like in round 3 at the end of it and beginning of round 4, there was just a massive momentum shift, and it was Jan's fight. It was immediately his. Pat, your thoughts on Peter Yan now being the bantamweight champion of the world and defeating Jose Aldo?
Yeah, no, I agree. Aldo looks really good, especially in the first couple rounds. And he was tagging Yan with some body shots. I honestly thought the fight was going to stop once, Aldo clearly took some shot on the ground there. It looked like to the body or to the ribs where he just turtled up. And I was surprised that Yan didn't just unleash at the body there, because I think if he had, that would have been it. Instead, he went headhunting, and Aldo kind of survived and then came back out, and that's okay. I didn't think Yan looked a little vulnerable, not just from against Aldo, but I mean, he just stood there. He kept standing there, turtling up, taking shots. Yes, it's against Jose Aldo, so he's a little older. He's struggled a little bit. Yeah, that's saying one thing, but I think he does that against Aljamain Sterling. I think he's in a world of hurt. I think there's some vulnerabilities that were shown in this fight for Yan. Again, I agree with the stoppage 100 being atrocious 100%. I think there were multiple fights on this card where stoppages were a little bit questionable, but that one was egregious. Definitely need to have a talk with Leon Roberts about what that was about, because that fight was over a minute before it got stopped. And it's sad to see, again, the changing of the guard. Part of me was pulling for Aldo to pull up this crazy upset and get his 2nd belt. That would have been amazing. And he did look competitive for a lot of it. But yeah, at this point, I don't know. It was both entertaining at first and then just sad to see what happened. And I'm still wrestling with how I feel about watching Jose Aldo just like sit there, clearly begging for the ref to stop it, but being too proud to tap out. And I don't know. It was something else. So I think I'm excited for Yan versus Sterling. I think that's the fight to make there. Aldo, I don't know. I would say retire, just hang him up. That's a whole different question. It's hard to answer, but yeah, it's a good fight until it got bad.
I will say this. It wasn't as bad as, let's say, like Frankie Edgar, BJ Penn 3. Like, that was like, what is happening here? Like, how did this happening? Like, how is this allowed? Aldo looked like he somewhat belonged. Man, I'll go to you in a second. I'll just say this. Aldo, his reflexes and timing has gone. You can tell he is an older fighter. Like, he isn't like the new Shogun to a degree, where he's 33 years old, but he's 45 years old instead. You know what I mean? Like he is gonna be a old-timey veteran now where he's gonna be used as the old guy to get over as a prospect or a contender. And that's clear as day now, unfortunately. Matt, your thoughts?
Man, it's really, really unfortunate that this ref just fell asleep at the wheel, man. I tweeted out, like, you have to pay attention to the progression of the fight. If you pay attention to what happened in the fourth round, you saw Aldo start to fade, right? He faded hard in that fourth round. So at the beginning of the fifth, when you come out and get dropped, and then you tell the guy, hey, fight back, I don't know, 50 times, and he doesn't move, you got to stop the damn fight. He took a solid 3.5 minutes of unnecessary damage there, where Jan was just raining down punches on him, like from multiple positions, throwing in a few little knees on the ground there as well. And just, I mean, like, what was he doing? What was the ref doing, man? Like, I get it. Sometimes in title fights, you let the guy take some more damage because it's a title fight. It's a big moment, right? You kind of want to see the guy go out. You know, guys will say in the back all the time, you know, when we talk to fighters, they tell the refs, hey, I want to go out before you stop my fight. Well, I mean, like, we don't want to see Anthony Smith, Glover Teixeira again. You know, we don't need to see that. So stop the damn fight when the guy has clearly no path to victory at that point. There's no way in hell he's going to move from being turtled up because he's been turtled up for 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. So stop the fight. Really unfortunate. And I agree with everything else you guys are saying about, you know, the tread being off the tire, so to speak. That's what I said coming in this fight. That was my biggest question. How much tread is left on the tire for Aldo? I think we found out. He's got a few good rounds in him. Championship fights? No, I think those days are gone. So can he go out there and give you a good 3-rounder? Yeah, probably. Should he go back up in weight? Yeah, probably. But, you know, he's done some weird things at this point in his career. Who knows? But I would like to see, if you're asking me what's next for him, right off into the sunset, man. From all reports, like, you've got good businesses going on in Brazil. Like, you've got money. Don't need to fight anymore. And I get that guys love it and it's hard to walk away. But really, what else is there to prove at this point?
Absolutely agree. And I will say this, because this is something that, like, MMA hasn't experienced yet, because a lot of the legends are just, like, now retiring or now getting old. But that transition from a legendary fighter to a great promoter, like, that really doesn't happen in MMA yet, like it does in boxing, where we see all great boxers try to be promoters, and most of them fail, but they all try, right? I assume if you're Jose Aldo and you're back in Brazil, that you would reinvest in the sport when you're retired and start a local MMA promotions, have your own gym, whatever. Like you said, have other businesses, be that entrepreneur down there and live out your days in retirement comfortably. And I see someone in the chat saying that, you know, his head movement was really good before he got tired. I don't think that was true at all. He was getting hit with one twos constantly from Peter Yan. That right hand from Peter Yan was landing at will. I mean, he hurt Aldo in the first round kind of with that right hand off rip, like in the first minute that happened. So no, Aldo's head movement, like you see in, let's say, like was it the first or second Frankie Edgar fight? That is gone. Like that version of Aldo where he can just turn a fighter constantly that's pressuring him and just pepper him with the jab, pepper him with combinations and counters. That version's gone. It's no longer here. And like you said, Matt, he's a good 2.5 rounder right now. Like, that's what he is. And I think we have to somewhat accept that, unfortunately. Moving on to the last sort of fight we're going to break down in any sort of depth. Thug Rose Namajunas defeating Jessica Andrade via split decision. I scored this one for Andrade. I know I'm probably in the vast minority, but I scored this one for Andrade. I thought she won the second and third round from my recollection. Pat, your thoughts on this fight?
Again, I thought this was a fight that was much closer than I expected it to be. I had it for Namajunas. I had it 29-28 for her. But Andrade did a great job getting in there and getting scrappy with her, especially round 3. I mean, just clipped her with a couple of things. She was much more competitive than the beginning of their title fight, where it looked like Rose was just going to, coast with this until that slam happened. So I enjoyed it because it was way more competitive than I thought. But one thing too, where I question, especially, I thought if Rose goes in here and she just dominates Andrade, then I am more pumped than I've ever been for Weili Zhang versus Namajunas. I'm thinking this is going to be a crazy striking battle. Who knows where it goes? Seeing Andrade being able to clip Rose the way she did, I think Zhang is a little bit more technical and has that power, is that combo of kind of Joanna being technical and then power with Andrade. So I think this is going to be a bad situation for Rose. I'm still looking forward to that fight, but I now favor Weili quite a bit more. But again, good fight. I think it was a good bounce back for Rose. I know she had, gone through some depression after she lost all that. Glad to see she's fighting. I hope she continues to do that. I love to watch her fight. I love to watch Andrade fight. I thought it was a really good fight. And yeah, I had it Namajunas, but again, much more competitive than I expected.
Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was a close fight. I thought this one was going to be relatively close, but I expected Rose to do a little bit more than what she did. Actually, I didn't see her getting tagged like she did in the third round. I thought what she did in the first couple of rounds, where she was sticking and moving, darting in and out with quick combos, quick 1-2s. I thought that was going to be the story throughout the fight, but Andrade made some adjustments and she started closing the gap a little bit more. I liked what Andrade did with her head movement. However, she was doing a whole lot of head movement, but if she would have just mixed in a jab in there to close that gap even more, like that would have been the game changer right there. But all she was doing was like that classic, like Mike Tyson, like ducking and like trying to get in close and swinging a hook at the last second. That's too. It looks good, does cause a little bit of confusion, but it's still real easy to read, for someone, especially as skilled as Rose Namajunas. So it was a good fight. I had it for Rose. First 2 rounds were Rose's rounds on my card, with Jessica turning it up in the third and making some noise. But the only thing that really concerned me throughout the fight was, I believe it was after the first round where Trevor started saying, hey, watch, throw that knee out there a little bit. It was either after the first round or the second round, but then she started throwing flying knees. And I was like, oh no, don't get caught and slammed on your head again. So I was like, please stop with the flying knees, Rose. I don't want to see you get tossed on your head again. So yeah, it was a good fight. It was entertaining, man. And I agree with the sentiment about the fight against Weili being a little tough for her right now, but we'll see how it goes.
To the point of the Andrade's head movement being somewhat detrimental, actually, it's not only like that she just didn't use a jab to be, the pressure fighter you naturally are if you use that head movement, that Mike Tyson head movement, right? You can use that being on the outside and playing the counter striker. She just never made Namajunas really pay. Like anytime like Namajunas would throw a jab out there and she would slip it, you would never see Andrade throw a counter hook. You would never see it. You just keep ducking under and just keep ducking. And it was just tons of wasted time and energy by her. So that's why I have no issue with anyone saying that she won. I probably should watch the fight again because I thought she won the second round, but maybe I should watch it again. And to the point of Weili Zhang versus Namajunas, yeah, I don't see how Rose can really win that fight, to be honest. I don't think she's the better fighter on paper. I think Zhang's power is going to be far too much. Like, I don't see, Namajunas' grappling being better. Like, I don't see any path of victory, honestly, for Thug Rose in that fight. I honestly see just Zhang dominating this division right now. Unless like Tatiana Suarez comes in and is just the better grappler, I don't see anyone beating Zhang at this point. Even a returning Thug Rose, which was nice to see after a 1.5 year layoff. Guys, any other thoughts on this fight?
I agree with you, man. I want to see Thabib come in, man. I want to see her healthy and get that shot, man.
Yeah, no, I think she deserves that shot. I hope she's, I know she's been dealing with that stinger or whatever's going on with her neck. I hope that gets fixed because that's her versus Zhang is the fight I want to see for sure.
Speaking of another, we're going to briefly mention this. Another fighter that could be fighting, Zhang and Thug Rose in the near future. Amanda Ribas, who just dominated Paige Van Zandt in like 30 seconds and submitted her. Like, this wasn't even close. Like, there was no facet of this fight where Paige Van Zandt looked near competitive. Like, it was levels on levels of difference between these two. And I am totally on the Amanda Ribas hype train. I love the laugh. I love everything about her. I'm a fan. I stand now Amanda Ribas. And I think like a Carolina Kalkiewicz fight or something along those lines at 115 would just make a lot of sense for her next. Or if you're going to save Thug Rose versus Amanda Ribas. Like that's actually a fight that Thug Rose can win, and it would make sense to some degree. Otherwise, Zhang's just going to dominate this division more and more. Guys, any thoughts on that fight before we head out of here?
I agree with you, man. Big shout out to Aaron Bronstetter from TSN, man, because I was watching him on Periscope before the fights. He did a little pre-fight show, and he coined the term, Hebus Island, akin to Revis Island from the NFL. For those of you guys who follow the NFL, know that. So I'm with that, man. Start that hashtag up, Rebus Island. Let's get it. I'm with it, man. I'm with it. Her interviews are hilarious to me on so many levels. Her personality is fantastic, man. You gotta love it.
She's so happy all the time. It's amazing. Pat, your thoughts?
It's not that long ago. A lot of stories came out about hashtag Joe Silva stories, talking about how he would match people up based on personal reasons. This kind of felt like that, especially with Paige Van Zant saying like, hey, I want to go test free agency, when they tried multiple times to re-sign her and she was adamant about going to test free agency. It felt like they kind of fed her to the Sharks here. I expected this to go by submission for Ribas the whole time. Not shocked at all. I'm sure Van Zant will go to Bellator. If she ends up anywhere other than Bellator, I'll be super shocked. But with Ribas, I think basically at this point, I don't know that I would feed her that high to Rose, or someone I would love to see her against is Tisha Torres, who just had a great, phenomenal matchup, looked really good. And that's, 3 or 4 spots ahead of her in the rankings. I think that's a great test for Ribas to see if she's ready to get that fast track or not. I'm with you though, in terms of her personality. It's a little bit much, a little too happy for me. I'm more of a, sarcastic guy. I like a little pessimism there. I like more of a Rose staring off into space, looking just sad all the time. Like that's more me. But I get it. I like Ribas, and I'd love to see her keep going. So yeah, I say Ribas versus Torres is where you go next.
I love it.
115 is so stacked. I love that division. Guys, that's gonna be it for today. Just a quick little reaction show. It's late as hell. Let's get the hell out of here. You can find me, Matt Hunter, MCR, on all social media platforms. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe. Matt, tell the people where to find you and your work.
At Mr. M. Wells Art on Twitter. Go follow there. Instagram, same thing. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, man. Slip and Dip Podcasts. We're kind of on a hiatus right now, but we're going to work on some stuff here soon. But got a lot of stuff in the library to go back and watch. Also, check out my work on fansided.com as well. And Flow Combat if you're a subscriber there.
Pat?
You can catch me at All Day OJ, spelled AUGER. Looks like Auger, but it's OJ, on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me now exclusively at the Body Lock, so check me out there. And also YouTube, we've got the Fight Business podcast rolling. Got some good interviews. Hopefully going to talk with some more promoters about everything going on, and a couple of special UFC guests, possibly, that some higher ups that should be some interesting interviews. So check that out. Like, subscribe, all that stuff.
Yes, definitely go check out Bylock MMA on YouTube. Go subscribe. They're one of the best up-and-coming websites, or just like websites, period, right now in MMA. You have to go subscribe and check out all their work. It's a must if you're an MMA fan. Guys, it's going to be it. Have a great night. Stay safe out there. Peace.